Is it time to buy a new camera? Well, that's one of those things that you can kind of answer yourself. Have you saved up any money? Do you have a need to get a better camera than the one you already have? That's standard questions. Sometimes we get stuck in the trap. We're like, you know what, we'll just buy a new camera. I've got loads there. You can see one up there. You see one down here. I use one for live streaming. So we're gonna see and think, do we need to upgrade? When was the last time I upgraded? And how long since I upgrade? It depends how you're shooting, what you're shooting, and when I'm saying shooting, I'm talking photos and video. So we're gonna look at this in the way that, could we get away with doing a cheeky upgrade like just changing the lens? Will that help you? Probably. But how about if the fundamental body is not giving you what you want? So for example, you've got a camera that shoots and you can do good photos with it, but you're starting to think about video and your video's not as nice. When we say nice, maybe it doesn't have auto focusing, so you've got an older camera body. Maybe there's elements of the current video that you don't like the look of. Is it recording in 720p still? Is it a really old camera? Does it record in 1080p? Do you want 4K? Are you planning to make your videos 4K so when you edit them you can crop in on the video, make it look more nice? So all these little things are questions you ask yourself. But the time to buy a new camera is going to be when you've done some research, because it's all going to start with research, looking at cameras and thinking, you know what, do I need that camera? Have I got $1,800 spare to buy that camera that I think will help me? So sometimes the answer is yes, because if you're going to upgrade, you might as well buy a camera that's going to last you a further 3 to 4 years comfortably. Because the worst thing is buying a camera every year just for a little feature. But sometimes those features can be so revolutionary that you're like, you know what, I can do with that. But that's where it comes down to, are you shooting for yourself as a hobby? Maybe you don't need that feature. Are you shooting professionally where it'll make a big difference to your workflow? Then, okay, that makes sense. So some of these things are going to be interesting. But there are key moments in time when you should buy a new camera. So there are like certain times of the year which is handy. They mainly say the main ones is January, April, and August or December, depending on the release dates of new cameras. Because remember, when the latest camera comes out, this older cameras, will say the last year's model will take a dip in price, so that might be a good time to buy. You don't have to have the current release camera in the year. You can buy a model before that, which will actually give you a newer camera but at a better price. So if you're on a budget and you're saving money, that might be something to think about. In addition to that, the new model releases are normally announced online, so you'll get like a good price on Amazon, for example, where they show you, oh yeah, okay, this is a model from like 2019, 2020, 2021, depending on which year you're there. And what is the best camera to buy when you're thinking about upgrading? Ideally, if you're shooting with a certain brand and you've built up knowledge around the camera brand, sticking to the same camera might be beneficial for you rather than having to learn a whole new system. Like for example, if you're moving from Canon to Sony, you might not like the Sony body, you might not like how it holds, how it feels. And the most popular time to start looking is going to be basically July, August, ready for those deals coming out. So you can start looking at, what camera do I want? What camera have I got already? And should I be looking at certain features that would help me make my photos, my video better? So how it will work is you're going to be saying, okay, so I'm using my mobile phone maybe. I've been using it for a couple of years, taking loads of photographs. I'm going to move from that to a DSLR camera. What cameras should I look at if you're watching this recently, as in now? So I'm going to show you a few cameras and we're going to look at these to see if they would be beneficial from you. I'll give you examples of cameras if you have a camera, what you can upgrade to get a big enough change. Because the worst thing is upgrading to something with that like a big change. You might be, oh, that's just same to what I already have. So let me bring up a few cameras and we look at those now. So the first camera we're looking at here is something that's quite a good starter camera for many people. So firstly, if you don't have a Canon this kind of era, T7, 2000D, 1300D, T7 as in the T7i, which would be equivalent to like a 650D, 550D, 650, 700D, those kind of cameras, those are going to be good starter cameras. So I'll give you an example of what camera to move to from this camera. However, if you're not at this stage yet and you're still shooting with a mobile phone and using like your mobile phone camera and you're thinking, I want to up my game, this would be a good camera to upgrade to from a mobile phone. You'll see a noticeable difference in photo quality and video quality because you're basically getting a professional camera where you can change the lenses. So that's going to be a big plus. From mobile to this, good change, big change, you'll notice the difference. What about if you already have this camera or an equivalent Nikon camera like a 3500D, D3500? That would be an equivalent one to this. So if you got this camera, the next step up would be, let's have a look. Okay, so if you were to upgrade, you would be upgrading to something like this, where you'll see a decent improvement. When I say improvement, it's going to be in the form of video. You'll get auto focusing in live streaming. This is a Canon M50 Mark II version and overall solid camera for photos, for video and for live streaming. You can detach the lenses, and the best thing about it is a compact size, so it's not like a big girthy thing. So if you add this and you're like, you know, that's quite big, I didn't take it everywhere with me, this M50 will be a little bit smaller than this camera, a little bit more lightweight. It's a mirrorless camera, so it's more compact basically, but it's still in its own right a solid camera. So in that example, if you were using this camera a lot and you move to that camera, what would be the main changes? Well, firstly, the menu buttons on the back will be slightly different. You're going to have a flip out screen, which you did not have on the T7 that we looked at. So if you're doing vlogging, you can flip out, and that's a big benefit if that is a requirement for your needs. In addition to that, you've got the the smaller sensor, which is similar to an APS-C sensor, but it is a mirrorless camera, which basically means it doesn't have to be as bulky. You'll see in here, there's like a bit of a mechanism there, which is a mirror basically that shoots up and down when you do a photo, gets out the way to expose the sensor, but that does not have it. So that would be a good improvement. It's got live streaming capabilities. You can plug it into your setup, so you can plug it into your laptop or computer with one of these HDMI cards, and you'll get a clean HDMI like you're seeing right now, and that would help, yeah, live stream. However, what about if we have this camera, we wanted to upgrade to another camera? Is it time to buy a new camera from this camera? Maybe, depends what you want to do. So let's have a look at the next one in the lineup and see what that will do for you. So if you were upgrading from the M50 to another camera, what would I say would be a good option? Well, you've got a few options you can do. You can either go bigger or better. Go bigger or go home, don't they say that, don't they? So here we have a Canon 90D camera, solid camera, very capable camera, full frame camera, 4K video, and the thing here is you're gonna get better low light performance. What does that even mean? So if you're taking a lot of photographs or you're doing video and you're doing it in a darker environment, so maybe like what I'm in here, technically it is quite dark. Here's a pitch black room, I've got a light, but the dark bits should look as good in dark light. So if you have a full frame camera, that makes a big difference on the processor or processing of the image and the visuals. So if you have a good lens and a full frame camera, there's different depth of field. It does compression, so it looks, this is a bit fancy, but I don't want to use fancy words with you to confuse you. But it's basically having that extra element. When I take a photo on my full frame camera and then I use a crop sensor camera, I notice the difference. So I could even use the same type of lenses on both cameras, but the difference is noticeable to me. So maybe you see a photograph and you're like, okay, I like the look of that photo, but you see another photograph and you're not quite sure what the difference is, but one of them looks more pleasing. You can't explain it sometimes, but you can tell the difference on that. It's similar to like the large format cameras as well, like the Hasselblads and stuff when they do house photography for furniture and things. So there is noticeable little differences, but when you pay more money, you're getting something more in terms of technology. First, you're going to get 4K video. So you're getting 4K video in addition to a solid performing professional camera, a robust camera, but now we're going into more of the pro side of things. So you can use this in multiple scenarios and more of like a regular use. So how about if you've got a pro camera already and you're like, okay, I've got that. I've got the DSLR. I've got the Canon. I've got the 90D. I've got a big hefty bazooka camera. I'm not too keen on a big camera. I want a smaller camera. What do you do then? Well, then people, what you do is you whack out your R6, don't you? Now this is a solid camera, a favorite of mine. R5, R6. Okay, so this is basically a full frame camera, but it's mirrorless, so it's a bit smaller than the 90D that I was showing you, and it just performs better all round. It's a newer camera, but you'll notice you're paying for that as well. So you're looking at $3,000 with a kit lens. Kit lens refers to the standard lens that comes with the camera like that. So in that example, that's like kind of a bit of a kit there. You get quite a few case and everything, but this will be your extreme. So now you've looked at a few cameras all the way from $450 up to $3,000. Find where you are, and that's your options. If you're shooting Canon, you're okay, because I've shown you a few Canon options here. If you're shooting Nikon, if you're shooting Panasonic or any other manufacturer that's not Canon, sell it and buy a Canon. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I normally wind up those people. I have regular live listeners. Julian is not here today. Julian is a big Sony fan, and I normally wind him up. But like I say, there are similar cameras available in every model. So if you've got a Canon, there is an equivalent one in every other brand. Similar specs, for example. Don't compare a new camera to an old camera. Compare the same years, and there's not much difference between them. You make your choice. Is what you prefer or what you've been shooting with. So I'm hoping you found that useful. I'll link you to another video here that will carry on looking at cameras and all the comparisons I've done. And I'll see you on that next video.